Hello and Guru Scott. On this video I'm going to be winterizing my Suzuki GSX1250. This is a 2011 model. So some of the main things I need to do before winter time is I need to actually change the coolant, change the oil and filter, lubricate the chain, and a few other ancillary items like removing the battery and putting some fuel stabilizer in. So the first thing you'll notice I have the tank loose. I took the two 10mm bolts out that are underneath the seat at the rear of the tank and took them loose and slid the tank back slightly and canted it up so I can get to the radiator cap. Now to drain the radiator you actually have to pull the plastic side fairing off, and so I'll do that, and then you actually have to take the hose loose. I will put a bucket underneath it and precisely measure how much comes out so I can put that exact amount back in. So we'll do that as we get to that step. So stay tuned and I'll be right back. I have the side fairing off now. I have the suitable drain container down below. One thing I wanted to mention was where this reservoir goes on, there's a bolt right here. I found that loose, so I reattached it with some medium strength Loctite. And so what I'm going to do is take loose this hose down here at the very bottom, and that's how I'm going to drain the fluid out of the coolant fluid. So we'll get that done, and then we'll come back and measure it, and then we'll add some new fluid back in of the same amount. Okay, so at this point I'm ready to measure out the used fluid and put it back into the container. I have a used antifreeze container is what I'm referring to, and I'm going to put brand new antifreeze in. I happen to have a gallon of Suzuki genuine antifreeze, but I don't think they have it in the gallons anymore, so if you want it, it's in the quarts, and it's Suzuki part number 990A as in Apple 0-02000. And so I'm going to get that done and then we'll come back. I have the water now changed. I put the new radiator fluid 50-50 mix back into the radiator and I reinstalled the gas tank. It was very difficult to get the liquid in. You had to rock the bike back and forth several times. But in addition to that, I also had to squeeze this hose a lot to try to get the cavitation out, to try to get the air bubbles out so the liquid would flow in. It took about a half gallon of fluid. I actually couldn't get it all in, so I put the rest in here, about that much in a measuring cup. So hopefully it'll suck it all in now that the cap's on, and I let it heat up all the way, and I'm letting it cool down now, and it should reuptake this liquid back from in here. So we'll let that go, and then tomorrow I'll change the oil, so we'll start that next. I'm ready to do the oil change on my motorcycle now. Before I do that, I'm going to get the fuel ready for the winter. So what I've done is I've filled the tank pretty much all the way to the fill mark, and it's a 5-gallon tank. It can hold just a little bit more. And so what I'm going to do now is add 2 ounces of Stabil, and that's fuel stabilizer that should keep it good for up to a year. Last year I stored my bikes for 5 months, started right up, no problems. I'm also going to add some Tacron concentrate, and then I'll close the fuel system up. I'll run the bike for about 10 minutes to get it all warmed up, and then we'll talk about changing the oil. I'm ready to change the oil now. The engine's warmed up. I've started using these K&N filters instead of the original Suzuki because they have a nut on top that you can use a wrench on to get them loose. Makes it a lot easier. Also, notice I put some foil there. That foil is on top of the lower header parts so that when the oil drips down, when you take the filter off, it's going to drip out of that into your oil catch pan, which you'll put there. Also, there's a bolt right here. You have to take that loose and take that bracket off, and then you can slip the filter in between that and that rubber hose there to get it out. That's really the only way to get it out. So that'll make the job a lot easier for you. And when you get that done, make sure you follow all the right torque settings for putting the drain plug back in and use a new drain plug gasket, and that'll take care of the oil change part. So after that, we're going to talk about getting the chain ready and a couple other things. So I'll be right back. To clean the chain before winter preparation, what I do is I mark a spot on it with one of these Hot Max paint markers. It looks like that. And then I use a toothbrush and a pan underneath it, and some gloves, of course. And I only use kerosene to clean the chain with. That's what Suzuki recommends. They say for O-ring chains only use kerosene. Now there are some canned products that are made for O-ring chains, and I'm sure those are fine. Then when I'm finished, I use some PJ1 Blue Label chain lube, and I hold a rag underneath it and spray it on as I move the chain. So I make sure I start at the white marker and then in there, and I know I've gotten the whole chain done. And then it's ready to go for that chain. So that's all there is to that. I've set the tire on a front wheel stand, and I've set the pressure on the front and rear tires to their normal pressure. And I'll of course recheck those when I get it ready for summer driving. So now I'm ready to remove the battery, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, I prefer to take the battery out for the winter time, so what I do is take this cable off here, take the rubber strap off. I take the negative loose first, followed by the positive, and I tape the battery terminals up. Or you can use a battery tender. The problem with that is you're not able to see your battery, and if it starts leaking or anything, you could end up causing a lot of damage. So I prefer to take it out for the winter. So I'm going to do that next, and then we're almost done. All right, so at this point, I'm ready to record all my maintenance activities in my owner's manual. I keep a note of the date and what I did. So I'm going to put all that in there, and then I'll store the owner's manual, and then I'll put the seat back on. And then I'm going to clean the bike before I cover it. So also, you may at this point in time want to change your clutch and brake fluids. I just did those last year, so I don't need to do them again this year. I only do them every 2 years. So I'll be right back with covering the bike after I've cleaned it. Before I cover the machine for the winter, I always wax it and wash it like I just now did, so it's all clean and ready to go. And I like to put a blanket on top because people have a tendency to set stuff on top of my bikes during the winter time, you know, small items, but I'm very protective of them. So I'm going to put a blanket on, and then I'll come back in a second and show you what it looks like with the cover. Also notice I folded the mirrors in to make it more compact. The bike is now ready for the winter time, so everything's covered on it. And next year, it should start right up, no problem at all. It's been doing that the last 2 years. So basically, that's how you winterize your machine, your Suzuki GSX1250 for the winter time. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Tschüss.